All right, sorry about that, folks. Sorry about for the delay, folks. I just was doing some last minute stuff here before getting started. So hopefully everybody had a good weekend. Hopefully you guys caught my interview on um, RJ's site on Critical Blast on Saturday, or caught me on Sunday on the open topic night. Anyways, RJ right now is of course finishing up his stream talking about Valerie Perrine and the documentary about her that's coming out tomorrow. So you guys might want to go check that out. Hello, how you doing tonight, my friend? If you can like and share the stream to see if we can get some more friendly people in here, be appreciated. Um, so we're just waiting around a few minutes to give people a chance to drop in and say hi. Anyways, walking in a town in a faceless crowd, I need to feel the touch of a friend. In the countryside, I wander far and wide. Isolation gets me again. I don't know where to go when I feel like crying. Oh my, it's time to open myself. Do something new. I want to stop and grow up a bit. Then suddenly my intuition and my wisdom grow. And then I know that most of all compassionately, strangers wherever they go. Thank you for waking me up. Let's see. Let's see what else. They're dashing, they're daring, courageous and caring, faithful and friendly with stories to share. All through the forest they sing out in chorus, marching along as their song fills the air. Gummy bears, bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. They are the gummy bears. Oh, we have three people in here now. Hello, guys. If you haven't already, if you can help me out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, now that we got three people in here, I guess maybe I will get started a little bit. So tonight we've got grand total of 9 news articles. We're gonna 9 news items we're gonna go through. 7 news articles, one from Critical Blast, and then the other 6 from Bounding into Comics, and then do some wrestling roundups with WWE and Impact Wrestling. Um, let me see. Hey, Lorenzo, I'm dropping in to say hi, but might not be able to stay long. I also press like. Well, thank you, my friend. That does help. Um, yeah. So among the stories include I'm going to be covering RJ's story in regards to how Pitt returned. Mr. Yanafui, hey, Mr. Yanafui, thank you for dropping in. Wow, we got 4 people now. Now we're really getting the thing started here. Among the stories include, hey, Mr. Yanafui. Yeah. So we've got, as I said, I'm covering RJ's article from his site on Dale Coon's Pitt Returns. Also, in regards to that, I did touch upon a little bit on Friday. I'll probably go a little bit more detail as depending on the comics. Apparently, has an article on it. Neil Adams passing. There's also an article on there on Stan Lee talking about how he created the X-Men. Let's see, Billy Tucci's comic is coming out. Sorry, comic. Billy Tucci's comic is coming out now. I guess on. I think it just finished its Indiegogo run now. It's coming out on Kickstarter. Those are the comic news stories, and then from the anime side of it, some news coming out on the releases of. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's the Tiger and Bunny 2 scenario going on that they're going to be talking about. I invite everyone to check out Mystery on a Fooey channel. It's got a lot of entertaining videos. Right? Yeah. Also, some news, of course, on I guess cast and cast update and all that for um for Rising of the Shield Hero. As I said, also some wrestling roundup. Really more WWE and Impact Wrestling, but I think I put AEW on my tag list for some reason. But with that, why don't we go ahead and get started here then? We got 4 people in here, so rather than waste time, well, and as always, guys, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free as we're talking about the stories. Right now, we're going to go ahead and get started with the news here. So here we go. Right, so here's our first stop here. Thanks. Alrighty then. So here's the first article we're gonna look at. All right, Pitt returns. Creator Dale, and I believe it's pronounced Cone. I could be wrong though. I've never heard anybody actually say his name. So Dale Cone announces Philip Diaz as new series writer. All right, so let's see what RJ and submitted by RJ Carter on Thursday, 1721, which I'm guessing would be 5:21 p.m. Now I would think that might be um, Central Time or something like that. But anyways, here we go. When the image revolution of the 90s took place, it spawned, pun fully intended, in parentheses there, a plethora of titles, many of which were flashes in the pan or team books that were indistinguishable from each other. Only to note, um, that they all vaguely looked like Marvel's X-Men. But there were a handful of standout characters that made a greater impact with readers in the entertainment industry. Todd McFarlane's Spawn, Eric Larson's Savage Dragon, Sam Keith's The Max, and Dale Cone's Pitt. Pitt saw a 20-issue run, which ended on a cliffhanger, right as the series foreshadowing seemed to be coming to a payoff. When Cone came back to the independent comic scene, he joined up with Ethan Van Sciver's All Caps Comics to distribute a new run of the popular comic. So I'm guessing then, now he's going to continue it in a way to where, people who are kind of sad that it was cut off after 20 issues now can get back in the story. But details of how that would happen were still kept under wraps. But on April 26th, which would have been last Tuesday, I believe, on Joan Sontag's YouTube channel, Cone dropped the news that everyone was waiting for. Not only was Pitt returning and bringing back all the elements of the original series, but the launch would have a new writer, Phil Diaz of Zade Comics. Let's see if anybody's in my pleasure. No, the poor people still. Well, I don't know if he's from the Diaz brothers or not, Mr. Yanafui. Quote, not sure if I want to say where the story picks up yet, unquote, Diaz tells Critical Blast. Quote, but fans are going to see familiar faces outside of just Pitt and even some villains that we did not get to see at the full potential of from the OG series. Unquote. However, fans may have to wait a while longer before a campaign for the series launches. Quote, we don't want to rush it, unquote, cautions Diaz. Quote, I would like to have a good amount of art done before the campaign is launched. For Dale and I, deadlines are very important. I am hoping that Dale can arrange for that Pit Omnibus to come out. So I guess Dale is the artist, and Dale Combs the artist on this. If so, I think um, that will give everyone a um, refresher on this world before we melt their faces with the comeback. Unquote. Fans have been expecting an announcement for a Pit series ever since Cohn made his first appearance on Van Sciver's Comic Artist Pro Secrets show. And on repeat appearances, Cohn would sometimes share the show with other guests, one of them being Phil Diaz. Quote, I was also making appearances on there and got the chance to share the panel with Dale a number of times. We hit it off. We both love Lobo, Simon Bisley, and ultra-violent badassery, unquote. Okay, I'm guessing here when they say Lobo, they're referring to the DC character Lobo, the space bounty hunter. Guy who rides that skull-looking bike down space. He was, of course, you know, he was featured on in the DCAU like 2 or 3 times. The two-parter in the Superman the animated series, the main man, as well as being featured in um, one of the Justice League episodes, voiced, of course, by Brad Garrett. Quote, I sent him a copy of my book, The Lost Pages, and he seemed to dig my use of narration, unquote. Diaz continues, quote, back in August, I came to him with an idea for his new Pit series. Something for him to use if he wanted. His response was, quote, I love that, so do you want to run with this? I was confused until he clarified. Quote, write the story. Or in smaller quote, write the story. Unsmaller quote. It was shocking, surreal. Since then, we have been meeting and working on plot while he's been working on a slew of CG Comicsgate covers, unquote. Cohn is the latest of a number of comics pros who have stepped away from the mainstream industry outlets to pursue his craft in the independent market of crowdfunded comics. He has recently contributed a cover for Van Sciver's property Cyberfrog. All right, so there we go with that one. Um, yeah, the Diaz brothers from Magic. Yeah, I have to take your word for it because I'm not sure about that one, Mr. Yanafui. Um, I don't know as much about that. So, anyways, as we shall continue on here. Let me head over to Bounding the Comics now and get into some of. So, all right. All right, so here's the next one. Here's the next article we're going to look at here. All right. Stan Lee explains how he came up with the idea of the X-Men. Article by John F. Trett, published April 29th, 2022, which of course was last Friday. Um, Excuse me for a quick moment, guys. I just need to step away from the camera for a moment. I'll be right back, but I will leave you some music to keep you guys entertained while I'm away here. Anyways, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, and I saw that there was at least. Let's see. Yeah, watch for Magic Cap on Indiegogo. Okay. Anyways, let's get into this article now. Legendary comic book creator Stan Lee came up with many of the iconic Marvel Comics characters that are household names, including Spider Man, Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, Fantastic Four, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Black Widow, Daredevil, and Scarlet Witch. Greatest superheroes of all. Also came up with the X Men, which might be his most loved creation behind Spider Man. Lee explained how he came up with the idea of the X Men in an interview with Lisa Tarada for the Archive of American Television's Living Television Collection. Now, mind you, I believe this obviously was an interview that was done probably maybe a few years ago. As we know, I think Stan Lee passed away about 2 or 3 years ago, if maybe a little longer. But it's probably from an older interview. Harada prompted discussion on the X-Men, saying, "We didn't really talk that much about X-Men and how that came." Lee jumped right in, saying, "Quote, oh, the X-Men? How I did that? Well, there's a funny a story. Everything is a funny a story." All right, I don't know if that was just a verbal tick or that was a typo, right? A funny a story. Um, and I have done the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Spider-Man. I think X-Men came next. X-Men and one other, I think Daredevil. They're about the same time. Unquote. There's another panel right here. That's that like Jean Grey, I would think. Yeah. Look at how Jean Grey looked like this from X-Men #1 right here. Look how Jean Grey looked way back then. They drew her. Interesting. Quote, anyway, I wanted to do another group of superheroes, but I was getting tired now of figuring out how they get their superpowers. I couldn't have everybody bitten by a radioactive spider or exposed to a gamma ray explosion, unquote, he explained. Lee then recalled, quote, and I took the cowardly way out into myself and smaller quote, why don't I just say they're mutants? They were born that way. Smaller quote. We all know there are mutants in real life. There's a frog with 5 legs like that, things like that. So I won't have to think new excuses. I'll get as many as I want, and yeah, he's a mutant. That's all. Unquote. Oh, and here's uh, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in the return of the dreaded Magneto. You got looks like on the cover there. You got Magneto, got Mastermind, Toad, um, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. And Scarlet Witch was in green there, as opposed to red. Wow. With the idea in hand, he then pitched it to his publisher. Quote, I had the idea and I made up some characters that I loved and I went to my boss, Martin. He was still publishing at the time. I said, quote, I have an idea for a book called The Mutants. Um, smaller quotes. I wanted to call it The Mutants. He said, quote, it sounds like a good idea, Stan, but nobody's going to know what a mutant is. Our readers wouldn't understand. Get another name. Which might be true. Mutant might be somewhat of a too generic a name, you know. Quote, well, I felt he was wrong, but what the what the he double hockey sticks, he was the boss. So I went back and I gave it some thought, and I thought they have extra power. They were led by a guy named Professor Xavier. So I said, um, in smaller quotes, I'll call them the X-Men, unquote, even though one was a girl. I just, a thought just happened to cross my mind here, guys. So Professor X is always, in a wheelchair that is running, and you got like five individuals who form the X-Men here. I just realized something. DC's answer to that, and I don't know if they came out before X-Men or after X-Men, but sans per se the mutancy as it were. The Doom Patrol, the X-Men, if you think about it, are maybe Marvel's answer to the Doom Patrol. If you really think about it, you got the leader who's in a wheelchair, very smart individual. I think as a leader, you got Dr. Householder for the Doom Patrol, and Professor Xavier for next. You've got teams that are comprised, I think, of 3 or 4 guys and one girl. So there's similarities right there between Doom Patrol and X. That was just something that just popped in my head as I looked at Professor Xavier right there and Jean Grey. It just kind of dawned on me on that. That was kind of an interesting thing. And of course, now where'd everybody go? I know Lorenzo said he was going to be in Colorado, Uncanny X-Men #1 here. All right. Continued the story. Quote, I went back to Martin. I said, um, in small quotes, hey, all right. How about this name? The X-Men, unquote. He said, um, he said, in small quotes, yeah, that sounds fine. Use that, in unsmall quote. So, as I walked out of his office, I thought to myself, if a reader isn't going to know what a mutant is, how was a reader going to know what an X-Men is? But I didn't want any trouble. I had my name, and I had my name, and I just let it go. Um, quote, but I often felt I don't understand the workings of the executive mind, unquote, he included. Some people might ar and there's Wanda right there in a more traditional red outfit. You got the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and X-Men #4 right there, all surrounded in tables. So it looks like you got from left to right there, you got Toad, um, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Mastermind. He told a similar story about the group's creation when he appeared on Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comics, or AMC, back in 2017. I remember this being on, I believe. So my dad actually watched this series, I believe, or actually, I don't know if it was that or another series that Marvel was involved with. I think How to Become a Superhero or something like that. Lee said, quote, I had already done Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Fantastic Four. My publisher said, give me another book, Stan. We're going strong. Let's do some more, unquote. Well, in order to get a new superhero, you have to think of are his or her power, what are his or her power is. Again, don't know if that was a verbal tip from Stan himself or if that was a typo. That's not too hard, but you have to figure out how how do they get that power, and that's a little difficult. I can't have them all be bitten by radioactive spiders. Sure, I mean, you can't have every superhero getting their powers the same exact way. The whole idea of them being mutant, it being genetic, actually makes more sense. With genetics, of course, there's always the chance of variance. Like for example, you have Summers, right? Scott Alex Summers. Scott can fire the custom beams out of the sky, whereas Havoc fires them out of yeah. So you have a slight difference in how it's whereas Havoc seems to have more control over his powers, whereas other he recounted, quote, so I had already given them their powers, and then it hit me. What if they're mutants? What if they were born that way? I thought that was brilliant, and I ran into my publisher and I told him about the character. I said, quote, we'll make them mutants. We'll call the book The Mutant. Lee then detailed, quote, and he said, um, no, in small quotes, no, Stan, that's that's not that's no good because our readers wouldn't know what a mutant is. And I said, quote, you don't have enough. respect for our readers, they will know, or else they'll learn by reading the story, unquote. Or they could, of course, go look it up in a dictionary too. He said, um, no, in small quotes, no, I don't like the name the mutants, unquote. So I had to think of something else in smaller quotes because he was the boss, unquote. There you have right there. You have Charles Xavier in the middle there. You have behind him over his right shoulder there is Cyclops. Over his left shoulder is Jean Grey. Hard to tell the two in front are from that angle, but let's see. Hey, toys. Uh, Audio is effed. Okay, better. I didn't know that it was F. Um, well, audio is F. Hey, Lorenzo. Well, I wasn't aware that my audio had gone out. But, anyway. He then recalled, quote, so I thought after a while, each of them has an extra power. Maybe I'll call them the X. That could sound kind of dramatic. So I ran back to him and I said, "Oh, okay, how about we call them the X?" And he said, in small quotes, "Oh, that's great," unquote. Quote. And as I walked out of his office, I thought, in small quotes, if a reader wouldn't know what a mutant is, how will he know what an X-Man is? Pretty much by the same way you said they'd know what a mutant is by reading the story and figuring it out. Who's not giving the readers enough credit there, Stan? Um, but I wasn't about to make an issue of it. I had my title, and that's why they're leader. I called him Professor X, and that's why their leader. I called him Professor Xavier, in small quotes, because it began with an X, and that tied in with the X Men and so forth. Unquote. They concluded. Here's a panel with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants from X Men #4, of course. What do you make of Stan's explanation about the origin of X Men? Are you surprised it has is had okay? I think that should be it. Has nothing to do with Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm. Not really. Not really. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't have anything to do with Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr. Just simply because there's nothing. Right. I know people have strong conclusions that the uh, eventual like debate over mutant rights in Marvel comics universe was parallel to the real world debate over racial. You get that. Anyways, before I move on, let me see if there's anything. And remember, guys, if there is anything you'd like to add to the conversation or about what we're reading or talking about here, um, feel free to chime in. Or if you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in. And if I can answer the question, um, I'll do so. I just did that for a moment. Saw that the little signal icon was showing. telling me signaled me how to do it. And that may have what had happened, and I just wasn't aware of it because I wasn't looking at the StreamYard screen at the time, it happened. That's why I probably wasn't aware of that happening. Alright, so now I did kind of very briefly touch upon this the other day, considering not doing this article, but I figured, I probably should give this a little more details, learn a little bit more about the guy here. Um, so here we go with this. Um, as I had mentioned the other day, of course, um, legendary Batman and Green Lantern artist Neil Adams passed away at 80. You guys remember Friday? I did kind of mention that briefly at the beginning of the show, early on. Um, gave a little quick piece and we did a moment of that. So this article, I'm sure, goes into a little more detail about the guy. Figure do that real quick here. Um, article by Spencer McCooley, published this past Thursday or past Friday. So here we go with this then. Neil Adams, the veteran comic book artist best known for his iconic runs and creations for DC Comics, has passed away at the age of 80. He lived a pretty long time there, didn't he? Comics would have risen to an art form. Neil Adams interview, DC Comics YouTube. As told to The Hollywood Reporter by Adams' wife Marilyn, the artist died on April 28th, which was Thursday, following complications resulting from sepsis, a life-threatening medical condition wherein one's body begins to damage itself in an effort to beat a given infection. Hmm. Information regarding the specific infection that prompted um, Adam's sepsis was not provided by his family. Matters of comic book art, 1987, Ken Viola, right there. In a separate statement provided to the Hollywood Reporter, Adams' son, Josh Adams, asserted, quote, "It wasn't until I sat at tables at conventions next to the same people I would watch, treat my father with such reverence that I understood he was their father too," unquote. Quote, Neil Adams, small quote, most undeniable quality was the one I had known about him my entire life. He was a father, unquote. He continued, quote, not just my father, but a father um, to all that would get to know him, unquote. Here, here's a cover of Batman. I'm guessing this is his cover art here. There's a Joker right there with Batman on the. Ha 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 ha! Look out, Gotham! Joker, the Joker's back in town. From Batman Volume 1, number 351, The Joker's Five-Way Revenge, 1973. Comic cover art by Neil Adams. Josh further reflected, quote, my father was a force. His career was defined by unparalleled artistic talent, unwavering character that drove him to constantly fight for his peers and those in need. Yes, I think I did read something about that, and I think I could be on it. He would become known in the comics industry as one of the most influential creators of all time and champion social and creators' rights. Yeah, I believe he was one of the guys who was instrumental in helping to get people to shoot to actually get a pension from DC. That's one of the things I'd also read. Quote, when he saw a problem, he wouldn't hesitate, unquote. He concluded, quote, what would become what would become tales told and retold of the fights he fought were born out of my father simply seeing something wrong as he walked through the halls of Marvel or DC and deciding to do something about it right then and there, unquote. Hmm. I would think I'm guessing that might be one of the no. Oh, okay. No, this is Avengers World Volume One, Number 6, Marvel Comics, cover by. Well, I didn't. I had known that he'd done work for. I knew he did work for DC. I just didn't know he did work for Marvel as well. Born in 1941, Adams would get his start in comics in 1959, so he's about 18 then. Following his graduation from the School of Industrial Art High School, landing at Archie Comics. So, wow, he got to start with Archie Comics, following an unsuccessful bid to work for DC as a freelancer. Interesting stuff there. Eventually, Adams would depart Archie for the funny pages, teaming up with writer Jerry Cap in 1962 to serialize a daily newspaper comic strip based on the popular then airing medical drama Ben Casey. Oh, I want a lady. I'd belt you right in the nose. Oh boy. Of course, Ben Casey, October 10th, 1964. Words by Jerry Cap. Um, I wonder if Jerry Cap is related to Al Cap, who was the creator of Little Apple. That's art by Neil Adams and art by Neil Adams. Following the end of the Ben Casey show and strip in 1966, Adams would proceed to bounce around the industry, undertaking such jobs as ghost illustrating classic newspaper strips like Peter Scratch and The Heart of Juliet Jones. However, in 1967 would However, 1967 would be a revolutionary year for both Adams and the comic book medium itself. Part of Juliet Jones, February 1st, 1969, King Feature Syndicate, which originally, of course, also hosted Popeye and the Phantom and Flash Gordon and Drake Edition. Words and art by Stan Drake and Neil Adams. That year, Adams would finally receive a proper shot at working with DC, being hired by the publisher to illustrate the Howard List story, um, but It's My Turn to Die, for the 182nd issue of Our Army at War anthology series. Soon after, he was given his first pair of superhero related art assignments, finding himself commissioned to provide the cover art for both Action Comics Volume 1, number 356, and Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, Volume 1, number 79. Son of the Annihilator, the kid with super fists. Now look at that. That's the cover art from Action Comics Annihilator 1967, cover art by Neil Adams. I remembered a lot of his work. A lot of his work with DC was 60s, maybe early 70s. Anyways, simultaneously, Adams made his interior superhero debut in Detective Comics Volume 1, number 369, working alongside fellow comics icon Gardner Fox to produce an elongated man backup feature to the Batman title. So by that point, I guess by that point, Elongated Man had become a backup feature in Detective Comics. He originally started out as a backup feature in Flash Comics. 1967 also saw Adams illustrate his first Dead Man story, in small quotes, An Eye for an Eye, in Strange Adventures, Volume 1, number 207. Succeeding creator Carmine Infantino as the character's primary artist and taking his first step towards his own eventual and widely lauded defining run of the character. Here's the artwork for that title right there. Strange Adventures featuring Dead Man. I got a lot of people he thinks are his killer, doesn't he? There. Strange Adventures, Volume 1, number 207. What Makes a Corpse Cry. 1967 DC Comics, cover art by Neil Adams. Then, at the dawn of 1968, Adams would produce his first official illustration of two characters that he would come to know for revitalizing, illustrating a team up cover featuring Batman and the Spectre for The Brave and the Bold, Volume 1, number 75. Here's that one, that cover there. Grasp of Shanzi. Yet Adams would not be relegated to simply working um, for one of the big two. And in 1969, the artist began simultaneously freelancing for Marvel Comics. Though brief, his time um, with the competition saw him providing interior art for the issues of Roy Thomas and Dennis O'Neil's run on X-Men, working alongside the latter to revive Professor X following the mutant leader's death at the hands of the villain Grotesque, as well as 3 issues of the Avengers Kree Skrull War tie-in issues. There's Vision in the corner there. There'll be Avenger blood on the hands of the Avengers versus the uh, Forward. Continuing at DC, Adams would reunite with O'Neill in 1959, collaborating with his former X-Men partner to produce his first proper Batman story, The Secret of the Waiting Gate, for Detective Comics, Volume 1, 390, Volume 1, number 395. Beginning with this story, Adams would go on to become one of the Cape Crusaders' most influential creators, redefining the character from more camp detective of the Golden and Silver Ages into the more brooding and gothic one known today. And from that, we're at the Reading Great. Words by Dennis O'Neil, art by Neil Adams and Dick Giordano. Further, Adams would also be responsible for injecting new life into Batman's rogues gallery, both through the creation of such iconic foes as Man-Bat and Ra's al Ghul, and revitalization of others, including Two-Face and the Joker. Though not specifically Batman related, Adams was also responsible for creating the third Earth based Green Lantern, John Stewart. Green Lantern Volume 2, number 87, Beware My Power, 1972, words by Dennis O'Neil, art by Neil Adams and Dick Giordano. At the same time, he was working to bring a new feel to the Dark Knight. Adams would also collaborate with O'Neill on perhaps the most iconic run of his career, reformatting Green Lantern's then solo book into a social commentary heavy team up feature starring both the Emerald Knight and the Green Arrow. A run which most notably featured the infamous issue wherein the latter discovers his sidekick Speedy is addicted to heroin. This, of course, is a very iconic. My ward is a junkie. Oh, look at that art on that. Look at that art on that right there. Wow, that right there is we had to. The reason we're going back and forth up and down this thing is because it's from September. Can't tell the year there, but um, this, of course, is one of the most iconic stories in DC history right here because of the you know this at this point, of course, they were starting to make more and more allowances within the Comics Code Authority for certain things. You could at that point you could depict drugs as long as you were depicting them in a negative light. Kind of pointing out why they're harmful. That's why they were able to do that story. After this run, Adams would scale back his DC Comics work with his final works for the company. Outside of sporadic returns for various specials and his 2010 miniseries Batman Odyssey being interior art cleanup for the first DC Marvel intra-company crossover, Superman versus Amazing Spider-Man, and pencils for Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Outside of his comic production work, Adams was also highly influential in the fight for comic creators' rights, with one of his most famed accomplishments being a successful lobbying effort to have DC Comics properly credit and pay Superman creators Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster for their creation. To this end, he was also a founding member of the Comics Creators Guild, which I'm guessing may have been an early attempt at a comics creators union. Unsurprising in light of his years in the industry, he was also the recipient of numerous honors throughout his career, including a pair of Shazam Awards for his Green Lantern Green Arrow work, and the introduction into the Will Eisner Harvey Awards and Inkwell Awards, respective Hall of Fames. I guess, there's his Man Bat creation right there. Or Detective Comics Volume 1, number 400, Batman Challenge of the Man Bat, 1970, cover art by Neil Adams and Gaspar Saladino. What do you make of Adams' passing? Let us know your thoughts on. Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's got to pass away at some point, but it looks like he did have a pretty he did a lot right with his life when he was alive. So that's a good thing right there. Anyways, let's see now. Before we move on, I think I'm going to go and make a slight adjustment here. Um, I'll be right back. I'll leave you guys some music to listen to while I step away from the camera for a moment. All right. Anyways, I'm back now. Hopefully everybody's having a good time here. All right. So here's our last comic article of the night. We see where we're at time was 58 minutes. So we're making decent time. It looks like. All right. So here's another you're having. After blasting past $100,000 on Indiegogo, Billy Tucci to launch She Sakura Kickstarter campaign. Article by John F. Trent published earlier today. This actually was just added like around the time um, either prepping to lock in my stories for tonight. So I just add this one in there as well. A comic book creator Billy Tucci will be launching a Kickstarter campaign with an exclusive variant cover for his upcoming She Sakura graphic novel. I recently blasted past $100,000 on Indiegogo. Like sounds a little bit like you might be doing a little manga influence here. Sakura, of course, is the Japanese word. $100,000. As noted, writer started or so what oh, so this character, her birth mother's wrath that comes in the form of an um, automaton like killer bent on destroying all that she loves. Unquote. It's pretty heavy. Chisaka right there. As she faces the brutal killer, her daughter, Hotaru, is now empowered by her experiences in Shi Haikyo, but quote succumbs to an inner violent streak with savage repercussions, unquote. The press release promises the book, quote, sets the final fiery stage for a samurai showdown of epic proportions at New York's Brooklyn Botanic Garden that will change Crusade Comics Keenan forever, unquote. So they actually have a bit of a world they're building there, huh? The graphic novel is being marketed as the final chapter of the Return of the Warrior trilogy, and as such features numerous variant covers from Jeff Chapman, Gardenia Lima, Asha Krishna, and Russ Hartman. There is also an Indiegogo exclusive from Kenneth Rocafort. The Kickstarter campaign will feature an exclusive from Billy Tucci and Brian Miller. That, that artwork right there. That one's from Asha Krishna. Hmm. Anyways, back up two people watching that. That's cool. The Indiegogo campaign also features lots of she related merchandise, including original art, prints, shirts, commissions, special editions, and an ash can from John Broglia and Billy Tucci for Zombie Sama 2 Dorm of the Dead. Backers on Indiegogo will also be able to back Billy Tucci's She Number One that features an homage cover to Amazing Spider Man. A She Sakura Ashcan, She Rise of the Warrior omnibus, and digital editions and metal editions of the various variant covers. There's also an option to acquire the covers as prints as well. The Indiegogo campaign originally had a goal of $15,000. It has clearly surpassed that by a wide margin. Campaign will continue for 18 days. As noted above, the Kickstarter campaign will launch on May 3rd, which is tomorrow. It is expected to run for 30 days over the next month there. Anyways, do you plan on backing Shi Sakura? What do you make of Tucci's Kickstarter? To the variant for the book. Which variant cover is your favorite? Yeah, art looks pretty good. Anyways, and as always, guys, if there's anything that catches your attention or anything you want to ask about, feel free to do so. And if I can answer the question, I will do my best to answer it as best I can. Anyways, now we'll get to the anime stories here. A couple of these. There's actually going to be a cartoon story as well. Regards to the latest X-Men cartoon, but that'll be a little later here. All right, so here, and I know that I think Hero Hay was actually talking about this article earlier as well. Saw his video on it earlier as well. Netflix's English dub of Tiger and Bunny 2 changes dialogue to have Golden Ryan criticize quote outdated gender norms unquote, declare himself a quote unquote feminist. Article by Spencer Cooley, published yesterday. Netflix's English language dub of the superhero anime Tiger and Bunny 2 has changed an instance of dialogue from the original Japanese script in order to have a male character, Golden Ryan, both criticize, quote, outdated gender norms, unquote, and declare himself a quote unquote feminist. Yeah, and this is what really irritates a lot of anime fans, including myself, when they're trying to interject Western ideology or Western morals into the product. Those of us who want to see it dubbed, want to see these series dubbed, don't need to be lectured to, and we don't need the proselytization. All right. Anyways, as we continue on here, created in 2011 under the direction of the Big O co-creator and Mobile Suit Gundam's Char Counterattack key animator Kenichi Sato and produced by the former Sunrise Studio. Tiger and Bunny depicts a world wherein superhumans, referred to in universe as next, noted entities with extraordinary talents, um, not only exist, but those who choose to serve as heroes, receiving corporate sponsorship and a starring role on Hero TV, a reality show which live streams their exploits and allows users to vote on who should be crowned the season's King of Heroes, quote unquote. And I saw the first season of Tiger and Bunny, and it was pretty good. It was pretty interesting. Unfortunately for Kotetsu T. Kabaragi, an older hero who goes by the name Wild Tiger and possesses the ability to power up his physical abilities for a short time, recent years have seen his more classical methods of superheroing rendered outdated by a generation new of necks who boast more haphazard views toward stopping villains as well as better equipment. As such, his sponsors team him up with an up and coming hero, Barnaby Brooks Jr., who just happens to share the same power set as Kotetsu. A good beginning makes a good ending. Back in 2011. Though their outlooks and methods clash at first, the two grow to respect each other's styles, ultimately finding their groove as partners and teaming up to solve the murder of Barnaby's parents. Following the anime's first season and a sequel movie, Tiger and Bunny The Rising, the popular series quietly receded into the annals of anime history until 2019. Bandai Namco Pictures, the recently formed entity into which Sunrise was folded, announced that a new series starring Kotetsu and Barnaby was in production. Tiger and Bunny The Rising 2014 Sunrise. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen Sunrise. Sunrise is a very famous studio. They've had their hand in a lot of work, including I think Big O was in that stable. I know some of the, many of the Gundam series were in that stable. Anyways, I've got to go off camera for one more time, real quick. I'll be right back. I'll put some music on for you guys. I do this. I do something real quick here. Things are starting to dip down a bit here. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back now. Continuing on here. Oh, so let me go over to the comment section. Released on April 8th, 2022, so a few weeks ago here. Tiger and Bunny 2 picks up in the aftermath of The Rising, finds two villains, Fugon and Mugon, slaughtering heroes across the globe as they make their way to the series' main setting, Sternbild City. The second season also introduces the quote unquote buddy system to the Hero TV competitors, an aptly named concept which requires all heroes to be placed in a duo. Their partner either chosen by themselves or forcefully ordered by their sponsors. Obviously, Buddy and Tiger and Bunny are already partners. So that season 2, episode 1, a word to the wise is enough. Thanks to this new requirement, veteran series hero Blue Rose finds herself teamed up with the aforementioned Golden Ryan. So Blue Rose and Golden Ryan. Okay. Um, Interesting. The gravity manipulating hero who debuted in the series as Barnaby's one time partner in The Rising. However, Blue Rose soon finds herself annoyed with Golden Ryan's overt chivalry, which, despite being performed with only the best of intentions, often results in him and in him either dismissing her own capabilities as a hero or treating her opinions with condescension. This friction eventually culminates in the season's 10th episode. Pride comes before a fall after a number of superheroes' secret identities, including Golden Ryan's, are acquired by the enemy through a computer hack. Fearing for his partner's safety, Golden Ryan attempts to combat the enemy on his own, arguing to Blue Rose Quote, I show my face without wearing a helmet. They might attack me any minute now. You haven't revealed your real name or your face. They won't go after you. So if you stay with me, you'll be in danger. So I guess that was the line from the sub. Quote, don't treat me like an idiot, Blue Rose fires back. Why are you worrying about me? You're the one who's in trouble. Do you think I'm so scared of them that I'd abandon you? Unquote. Following this argument, Golden Ryan and Blue Rose are seen together in the next episode. Every cloud has a silver lining, where in an effort to lift his partner's spirits in light of the data breach, forcing her family to move to a safe house, the former takes a heroine to a musical performance being put on by her childhood friends in a local park. Afterwards, the two return to the car and begin driving back to base. At which point, Blue Rose opens up. We've been friends since high school. I had to cancel on them many times because of my job, in brackets as a superhero, but they still remain my friends. I used to hate not being able to do what I wanted with my own time, but I'm the one who chose this life, unquote. Quote, whatever it whether it's my superhero job, my friends, school, my singing, I've got to live my life with no regrets, unquote, she asserts, which in turn prompts an apology for their argument from Golden Ryan. So, at least in the Japanese, it's more of a classic, might be more of a classic male chauvinist type thing, where he's just trying to get a good time, trying to be chivalrous, and he's just not having it. It is here that Netflix's English dub changes rear their heads as brought to the so that was all the sub dialogue right there based on the original material. It is here that Netflix's English dub changes rear their heads as brought to widespread attention by um, Token Sock Bucket on the Reddit Kotaku Kotaku in Action subreddit. In the original Japanese, Golden Ryan goes on to admit, quote, sorry about yesterday, when I said everyone already knows my face, so you can't protect, quote unquote, oh, that on Blue Rose. I was PO'd, um, but it doesn't matter anymore, quote unquote. Quote, no, that's not good enough, exclaims Golden Ryan in return. Quote, I always felt like I've got to be the one who protects you because my partner is a girl. But a partner is a partner. Doesn't matter if it's a guy or a girl. He further explains, quote, for some reason, I thought I was the one protecting you, but as your partner, I should have known that you're stronger, more dedicated than anyone else. You're the best superhero out there. Unquote. I think this is based on the original Japanese script. As far from reading here. Instead of protecting, let's help each other, um, quote unquote. Um, Golden Ryan continues, quote, doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl or older or younger. Does that sound better, princess? Unquote. Author's note, princess is being used in this instance as a sincere and affectionate nickname rather than a sarcastic pejorative. Which I think anybody with any real, the fact that they should happen to make that author's note shows just how apparently dumb our society is. That you can't figure that out when the context clues right there. You know, um, quote, I guess I should stop calling you that, unquote. Ultimately asked, to which his partner replies, quote, you don't have to stop. I don't hate it when you call me that, unquote. Yeah. For him, Princess, I think, is just a very friendly nickname that he gave her. Sometimes used sarcastically, other times used, you know, um, in affection. So, anyways, while Golden Ryan's original dialogue depicts an acknowledgement that Blue Rose's gender led him to be overprotective, in English, the sentiment is taken to a self-flagellating extreme. So what they're saying here is basically decided to take it to more of an extreme in the English dub. Quote, hey, begins the hero. Quote, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Back at the training facility saying that you wouldn't be able to protect me. Unquote. Quote, it was nothing. Blue Rose tells him in return. Quote, I was pissed off. I hadn't thought, PO'd. I hadn't thought about it since. Unquote. Quote, it wasn't nothing. Golden Ryan then explains. Um, quote, it's an outdated gender norm. I still feel like I need to protect you. I was raised better. I think I might be a Oh boy. Again, you just hate it when they do this garbage. People are not like if they know that this is coming, people are not liable to be watching it if it's garbage. He next tells the veteran hero, quote, look, partner's a partner, guy or girl, doesn't matter. And I really am disappointed in myself. I should know my partner better than that. They're stronger and more dedicated than anyone out there. God knows you'd kick my rear end. You're the best superhero I know. Unquote. Yeah, that is self-flagellating extreme. They, they're so virtue signaling here. It's not even funny. Quote, I won't try to protect you anymore, declares, quote, unless maybe someone has a gun or something. That's feminist, right, princess? Uh, Stopping himself, Golden Ryan ultimately observed, whoop, I guess I should probably stop calling you that. Huh. Or Blue Rose assures him, quote, you don't have to stop if you don't want to. It doesn't bother me that much. I kind of like it. Unquote. Yeah, I thought the way the original Japanese dialogue was, it should have just kind of made, now maybe because of localization, maybe because of how English is said, maybe we could have done something with that. We didn't need to go to, we didn't need to do this. We didn't need to like work this out here. What do you make of these English language changes to type? Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to get annoyed with it. People are going to get a little more annoyed with it. Um, Anyways, there's that one. Well, that's good. Right, I'm getting ready to move on to next, the last article. Well, actually, no, this isn't going to be the last anime article. There is one more after this. Let me just check what time it is. I've been going for a while here. We're at the hour 25 mark. So we're still a good time here. See? All righty then. Let me see. Release date announced for the second season of The Rising of the Shield Hero. English dub, voice talent confirmed. Article by John F. Trent, published May 2nd, 2020. I think there might be a change because it was announced the other day, as we saw on PBR, that Billy Clement, I think, does the voice, who was doing the voice of Naofumi up to this point, uh, had to step away to deal with uh, his colon cancer diagnosis. Crunchyroll announced a release date for the English dub of the second season of The Rising of the Shield Hero. Actually, we may have been able to go through the whole work because um, they've already got it all done already. In a press release, Crunchyroll announced the second season's English dub will release on Wednesday, May 4th, this Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. That's 2 Pacific, 4 Central, on both Crunchyroll and Funimation. The second season featured ADR direction from Steve Staley. So basically, the LA group of voice actors is doing this show. The voice talent includes Stephen Fu as Naofumi Iwatani. So basically, yeah, they've already replaced Billy Camet, said, from the looks of it. Erica Mendez as Raftalia, Brianna Knickerbocker as Philo, Amber Lee Connors as Ost Horai, Don M. Bennett as Eclair, Sieto, Sean Chiplock as Kyo as Nina. All right, so they had already replaced Billy Camet by this point, yes. The Rising of the Shield Hero is based on the manga written by Aneko Usagi and illustrated by Seira Minami, adapted from the light novel written by Usagi. The second season of the anime is directed by Masato Jinbo and animated by DR Movie. The show synopsis states, quote, learning that other nations are enduring the calamity waves. Now Fumi vows to fight, but before he can begin, word comes that the massive spirit tortoise is free, unquote. It adds, quote, left unchecked, this rampaging monster could destroy the world. He assembles companions Raftali and Philo, and a few new allies, one of which reveals scary news. This was no accident. Someone deliberately unleashed the legendary beast, unquote. Subtitled episodes for the series are currently being simulcast from Japan on Wednesdays at 6 a.m. Pacific time on Crunchyroll. So 6 a.m. on Wednesdays Pacific time. That'd be my time. So that would, I believe, be in Japan. That basically be Thursday morning because 16 hours difference there. Actually no. Okay, actually no. That'd be more like in the evening. So 6 a.m. Pacific time here. So in Japan, be 6 p.m. or 10 p.m. Japanese time. It's 10 p.m. in Japan. You plan on watching the dub version of Rising of the Shield Hero? What have you? I might at some point. I might at some point. I've got, of course, got to watch the first season first. Well, as you remember, as I said, we do have you have one more article to go through. We're still good on time here. Hour and a half. So we should be able to get through this pretty quickly here. Then, all right, there we go. Now, of course, this is an article that grabbed my attention because, of course, I've watched X Men. This is a follow up to the original X Men from the X Men animated series back in '92, X Men '97. From what I've read, basically at least at the core, this one's supposed to um, go from after that series ended, basically go from the point after graduation day. But we have heard that there's been a lot of things they've been doing with it, like talking about trying to bring in voice actors like I know there was a story about Allison Court saying she didn't want to do Jubilee again because she wanted to give the role to a Chinese Canadian actress, you know, for diversity's sake. But anyways, X-Men 97 head writer hints Disney Plus series will reflect modern issues. Quote, the world is a very different place than when the original was first made, unquote. Um, Article by Spencer McCooley, published on last Thursday. So here we go. In the latest indication that the series will suffer the same critical theory based writing that has doomed so many productions before it, X-Men 97 head writer Bo DeMaio has suggested that the upcoming Disney Plus revival of the classic Marvel series will see a focus on quote unquote today's world woven into this story. Of course, because that's basically what everybody wants. Everybody wants to be lectured to, right? I'm sure many of us, if when they were thinking, well, what if they ever did bring back that series? What if there was the, what if there was, we really, was it really that a lot of people were saying, oh, how we want them to lecture us and tell us about how crappy the world is? Yeah, I honestly don't really believe. But apparently, these people do. Anyways, that was from season 1, episode 10, Come the Apocalypse. Rogue and Apocalypse right there. Mayo provided this hint at X-Men 97's planned direction during a recent discussion with the direct writer Russ Meeheim regarding the various ways in which the fan favorite incarnation of the Marvel superhero team's return to the small screen will differ from their initial outing. Before delving fully into the topic, DeMaio opened his talk with Milheim by clarifying that though he and his team plan to make changes to the show, one aspect they wanted to carry over from the original was the quote unquote earnestness of its characters, particularly in how all of their quote emotions are on full display. Unquote. Well, the way that they did it back in '92 was good, but is that his? I don't know if that's his way of saying it. They're gonna crank it up to like the nth degree, and if that's the case, then I think they're gonna overdo it. Here's a scene from season 3, episode 5, the Phoenix Saga, part 3, The Cry of the Banshee. So, anyways, quote: for me, it made sense once I met quote unquote Julie and Eric Lewald and Larry Houston, who were the creators and directors of the original series, who are literally the best people you could possibly imagine, as they are so earnest and sincere as people, unquote, said DeMaio. He added, quote, when you watch the series, I think what we remember about is that there is such an earnestness to all the characters. Everyone's emotions are on full display. Everyone is sincere, and it is just when you meet Lewalds and Larry, it's just like, oh, I totally get it. And then here's one come the apocalypse. No, I don't think that right there is from Come the Apocalypse. I don't think that scene is from Come the Apocalypse. First off, Magneto wasn't even in Come the Apocalypse. And the second thing is that looks and I kind of noticed I more recently kind of rewatched this series because it's kind of one of those kind of like time killer kind of situations. Just something to kill some time with because I go back and watch the series, marathon it. Um, but this scene actually looks like it's from Beyond Good and Evil, Beyond Good and Evil story arc. To that end, DeMaio revealed to Milheim his philosophy towards the revival's production, explaining, quote, I think the challenge to me was honoring that earnestness, the emotional sincerity in the show, and where it wasn't just about the big bad of the day. Mhm. I mean, they did a good job with that, but if DeMaio's plan here is to crank that up to 11 or crank that up to the nth degree, then I think it's not going to be a very I don't think it's gonna be received very well. If you're gonna do what you've done with a lot of woke product, I don't think it's gonna fly too much. Fly as much as you think. Let's see now. Quote, that was almost in some cases an afterthought, unquote, the writer recalled. Quote, it was really about the relationship of this found family and how they cared about each other and had disagreements. Unquote. And this is from when, this of course is from the Spider-Man episode that the X-Men had guest starred in. Season 2, episode 5, Mutants Revenge. He further noted, quote, and I always just come back whenever we're talking in the writer's room or we're talking to the directors. It's just like we have to have earnest emotion in every scene because I really do think that was the secret sauce of the original series. And here's from the Cry of the Banshee as well. Building upon this apparent focus on emotion, when asked by Milheim, quote, how X-Men 97 may improve upon or differ from the original series, unquote. The writer asserted, quote, I don't know if improve would be a word I would use, unquote. Quote, I think that show is amazing in so many different ways, unquote, my opined. Quote, I think what I would say is that the generation who grew up watching that show, we have grown up, and the world is a very different place than when that show was first made. Quote, and so it is more a question of what does that show look like knowing what we know now, unquote, he asked. Quote, and how it looks like in today's world with everything that has changed and everything that hasn't changed, sadly, in our world. That is where I believe my focus has been as a storyteller. It's really been that, unquote, he concluded. Though some may argue that Milheim's comments do not lend themselves to any specific narrative, small, in smaller quoted event, the outspoken opinions of a number of the show's production team may provide some clues to X-Men 97's future. Previously, the show's supervising director penned a tweet to his personal account a function which holds a given post top of a user's personal profile, featured a message declaring F Trump, he's still your boy, F you too. Yep. And we, of course, all know that one. We reported on that a while back. Yeah, it's kind of funny how nobody's talking about the 25th Amendment with Joe Biden, but they were like trying to use it on Trump. Um, Likewise, X Men 97 supervising producer Charlie Feldman declared in a tweet that repeated the message, quote, Donald Trump cannot condemn white supremacists because he is a white supremacist, unquote. And just think, Mr. Feldman, Donald Trump at one time may have actually given money to some of the people that you actually would vote for. And you still want to call him a white supremacist, huh? She would. Oh, I guess she. My bad. I didn't know. Charlie. I figured it was a guy's name, but I guess I was mistaken. Charlie could be girl's name. Short or altered version of Charlene. She would also eventually take issue with the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse, taking to Twitter in the near immediate aftermath of the not guilty verdict to declare, quote, the cynical inevitability of the Rittenhouse verdict doesn't take out the pain of what the status quo Arcist BS represents, the terror it instills, and the lethality codified. Kyle Rittenhouse is a bleeping murderer, bleep white supremacist. Yeah, clutch your pearls there, lady. Clutch your pearls. Feldman has also publicly explained that her quote unquote personal writing is filled with such quote unquote trope as quote grappling with gender, um, quote unquote himbo good boys, quote mom stuff, unquote, quote unquote queer kids going on adventures that have zero to do with queerness, quote unquote folk myth fairy tales. Neil Gaiman probably did this better, um, and quote unquote anxiety over the future. To this end, X Men '97 lead showrunner Eric Lewald has promised that the revival would not only be developed for quote the core audience in brackets of maybe teens on Disney Plus and adults unquote, also explore adult themes. Well, they kind of did that in the original as well. Quote, they're starting out with adult themes, unquote. Lewald said during a November appearance on Power of X Men podcast. Quote, so they're starting out with thinking of it of in smaller quotes. This is a bunch of adults thrown together struggling with something, and we're going to show the melodrama. We're going to show you some of the personal things that adults go through. Unquote. What do you make of DeMaio's insight into the direction of X Men '97? Let us know your thoughts on social media or in, well, it's going to probably flop, my opinion. If they decide to go the woke route, they decide to go the social justice route, they try to preach and proselytize on this show, I think it will ultimately tank. It will ultimately tank. Um, anyway, so we're done with all the articles then. Um, Read through all the articles. We're done with all of those. So there's a couple more news items to kind of go through before we start to wrap things up. As I think we're at the hour 45, hour 46 mark coming up right now. So, so yeah, I got a couple of wrestling wrap up. So in the latest in the WWE news, um, I know the main event for WrestleMania Backlash, which will be happening um, this coming Sunday, um, this coming 6 days from now, has been changed. Originally, I think it was going to be Drew McIntyre challenging for the Universal title, for the unified titles. Um, Roman Reigns as champion. But now, and they were also talking about possibly unifying the tag team championships too. They've actually combined those two matches into one match, basically taken the title match aspect out of it. So the main event for this Sunday's WWE Backlash is going to be a six-man tag featuring the bloodline of unified champion Roman Reigns and the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos, known collectively as the Bloodline, taking on the team of Drew McIntyre and Raw Tag Team Champions RK Bro, um, Randy Orton, and Riddle. So that's the main event. Also, many of the matches are rematches from WrestleMania. Of course, one of the other matches signed that's more of a newer match, Bianca Belair will be defending the Raw Women's Championship against Sonya Deville. Let's see, Charlotte Flair, I believe, will be once again defending the the SmackDown Women's Championship over against Ronda Rousey. I think if I heard correctly. I think this match is going to be no an I quit match. So that's at least most of what I know there. Um, Now, in other wrestling news as well, Impact Wrestling, last Thursday, of course, um, Josh Alexander defended the Impact, his newly won Impact Wrestling heavyweight championship, world heavyweight championship against Moose in Moose's contractual rematch. Um, this was used to set up um, Alexander's next program as, a, as an opponent who was personally picked by Impact Vice President uh, Scott Moore um, as the next person who will be going after the Impact World Championship, as held right now by Josh Alexander, will be um, will be the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii of New Japan. Also determined, also the number one contenders for the tag titles were um, also established at last Thursday's Impact Weekend on Access or Impact Show on Access TV, in which uh, the Briscoe brothers defeated Rhino and Heath to become the number one contenders and will be challenging Violent by Design sometime in the near future. So after somewhat of a mixed bag over the last couple of months here, of course, dropping the ROH title, and just most recently losing a match, losing a championship match, not being able to gain the NWA World Tag, current NWA World Champions, La Rebellion, but also coming off of being the Crockett Cup winners as well. Um, Jay and Mark Briscoe will now become are the number one contenders to Final by Design and Impact. Will be challenging for those titles. Morrissey continues his feud with um, with Brian Myers, and by extension, the major players. As Brian Myers is now teaming up with digital media champion Matt Cardona, who happens to also be the NWA World Champion, with of course, Chelsea Green in their corner, with Morrissey now partnering up uh, right now with Jordan Gray. So this dude's gonna get hot pretty. And Morrissey's been trying to put Myers to a table for the last, I say, at least month that I know of, maybe a little longer from what I understand. You know, Brian Myers would be coming out on Impact to do special commentary from his own table, and Morrissey just wasn't having it a lot of times. Come out and try to, if he could get his hands on him, would try to power bomb him to a table. So this dude's going to be, I am, of course, on. It seems also Honor No More and Bullet Club are also going to be feuding a bit more. That program's picking up as well. So that's all the wrestling is. So that's basically all the news I have for you guys tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up here. We will look back at this day in Nietzsche history. And I will. All right. So with that, without any further ado, guys, I shall, today being Monday, May 2nd, 2022. Happy May to everybody. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and take a look back at this day, Nietzsche history. History. First off, we're going to go all the way back 80 years ago today, in 1942. As on this date, back in 1942, Warner Brothers released a pair of cartoons on this date. Chuck Jones's um, Chuck Jones's Bugs Bunny short, The Wacky Wabbit, um, and Norman McCabe's Daffy Duck cartoon, Daffy's Southern Exposure. On this date, um, on this date, back in 1942, 80 years ago today, Chuck Jones's Bugs Bunny short, The Wacky Wabbit, and Norman McCabe's Daffy Duck cartoon, Daffy's Southern Exposure, were both released by Warner Brothers Cartoon on this date back in 1942, 80 years ago. There we go with that one. Also, moving on to the next here. On this date, 30 years ago today, in 1992, the Zero G Room Animate Film Studios OVA KO Beast, known in Japan as KO Century Beast Warriors, debuted on this date in 1992. 30 years ago today, the OVA KO Beast would premiere in Japan on this date back in 1992. 30 years ago today. Let me just see something here. Apparently, it was dubbed into English and was done by the New York voice crew. So, on this date in 1992, KO Beast would make its debut in in Japan. So, anyways, moving along then to the next piece of Nietzsche history is on this date in 1995, the first issue of Gunsmith Cats from Dark Horse Comics went on sale on this date through their Dark Horse manga imprint. At the time, of course, this is a time when Dark Horse was getting started, and they would basically be doing American comic adaptations of Japanese manga. What they were doing here. So went on sale for $2.95 and was 32 pages. So on this date in 1995, which would have been 27 years ago today, the first issue of Gunsmith Cats from Dark Horse Comics through their Dark Horse manga imprint went on sale on this date in 1995, 27 years ago today. And finally, on this date 5 years ago today, 5 years ago today, Kevin Owens would defeat Chris Jericho for the WWE United States Championship. This, I believe, would be Kevin Owens' second reign as United States champion. He got his first reign at the previous month's WrestleMania, and then lost it a few days prior to this on the 30th, and then won it again on this. So on this date, 5 years ago today, Kevin Owens, for the second time, became WWE United States champion over by defeating Chris Jericho. Oh, there we go, everybody. Well, guys, I thank you for being here tonight. We pretty much, we're at an hour 57. Let's see if we can hit 2 hours. Then I can probably talk a few more minutes here. I thank everybody for being here tonight. I do appreciate all the likes and shares. I hope you guys are enjoying the stories. Don't forget that this Friday we're starting 1939. We're moving along in our historical comic book. Paco and I will be looking, of course, looking over comics on sale from DC 1939. We'll be kind of going over a quick review of what will be happening in 1939, and getting into the stories. And of course, there'll kind of be continuations of the stories we last read. So you have Wanted Superman and part two of Doctor Katum's Sea Farm. Time remaining may even set up another maybe a Steve Saunders story perhaps. So oh yeah, and also guys, if you haven't had a chance yet, go back. As I mentioned, I was on RJ channel last Saturday. I did an interview. I did an interview on that channel promoting my channel here, of course. Um, so it would be appreciated if you guys go back and check that out. It's pretty good. RJ and I had a pretty good time doing that. So hope everybody enjoyed that. See anything else? Um, let's see. Also, don't forget to catch some of our friends, of course. Number of guys. Critical Blast, Shack Press, Cross Comics, Lorenzo, the Slee Stacks. They're all cool guys too. If you guys can go out and support them as well, appreciate it. RJ actually was I'm a documentary that's coming out tomorrow on actress Valerie Perrine, who is probably best known as Eve Tessmacher in the Superman films, Superman 2 and 3. I probably go check that out as well. Sad dealings, though. She back in 2014 was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So, and I know that the documentary, from what I understand, you know is showing that part of it too. Anyways, guys, I thank y'all for being here tonight. And I hope to see y'all back here tomorrow. Bye.